Hey there, it's Tony Butler. Today we're going to talk about how I got started in business and how my very first side hustle totally and completely failed. I mean, absolute bombed. And it's kind of a funny story. I mean, every mistake you could possibly imagine. Um, Looking back on it now, I'm like, what the hell were you thinking? But before I get into that, please click like on this video. If you haven't done so yet, follow the channel. I'm building this channel to be a business marketing, personal development reference, okay, for anyone who wants to improve their results, especially if you're just getting started in a business or you're trying to scale a business in those early stages, or maybe you're just doing a side hustle. So follow me, ask me questions, and I'll help you, okay? So I've had a bit of an odd career path. Right out of high school, I didn't go to college. I ended up enlisting in the Army as a mechanic. And I'd always wanted to go to college. I didn't have any money. I didn't have any real prospects for scholarships. I was pretty decent in school. Not awesome, but good. And no one had really coached me into applying for grants or any of that. I sort of decided on the Army since at the time they were offering a 3-year program with College Fund. And it sounded like a good deal, so I joined up. And that decision, one thing led to another, and instead of just 3 years, I ended up staying in the Army for more than 15. But that's a story for another day. I did a lot while I was in. But when I finally got out of the Army, I was newly married. My wife at the time, still my wife, she was 6 months pregnant. And it was the start of a couple of really rough years. I'm from Montana. I've been here pretty much my entire life. I wasn't born here, but moved here for the first time myself in 1976, so my whole life. And well, I came back and I couldn't find a job. And I looked all around. Nothing really jumped out at me as I was getting out. And, I was feeling a little bit desperate. And I was a young guy and my wife was having a baby and I needed to provide. And I was stationed in Savannah, Georgia. And so I ended up at a job fair in Atlanta. And a company in Connecticut hired me to work as a project manager in their factory. Okay, so it was a good job. It was really a good opportunity. And I had never been to Connecticut. I didn't know anything about the cost of living there, the people, the culture, nothing. I didn't know anything about Connecticut. And at the time, I was just totally focused on finding a job, any job. And I was in the infantry in the Army in my last year, my last 7 years as an officer. And I didn't think I had any real tangible skills that translated to civilian life. And so I get to Connecticut and my very first business mistake becomes very apparent. That the company I went to work for, they were paying me about what I made in the Army, but the cost of living wise, we had to move from rural Georgia to Connecticut. Connecticut has insane taxes at every level of the state. Give you an idea, when just a few years ago, when I finally moved from Connecticut back to Montana, we saved $1,000 a month just on our property taxes, to give you an idea. And I didn't live in like some big mansion or anything. And that doesn't even include, like, Connecticut has, more than a 7% sales tax, and they have all kinds of personal taxes and vehicle taxes. I mean, just stacked up. The state is all about taxes. Okay? But the big issue was, besides all the taxes, I wasn't making enough money, and I wasn't making enough money to live there. And things were really tight, and I needed to earn more. Overall, I liked the work that I was doing. I was just getting started. And I was learning. I was in learning mode, and it was a good opportunity for me. And I had an awesome boss, one of the best bosses I've ever had. And I wasn't ready to try and find a new job just because I wasn't making enough money, although I'm sure a lot of people would feel that way. It just didn't make sense for my career progression to try to change or find something better. And I don't know that I could have found something better anyway. So what I decided was that I would start a business to make money on the side and to help make ends meet. And I don't know why, I can't even remember why I decided that rather than get a second job. But I had no idea what to do. I didn't even think of it as a side hustle then. I'm not sure that term even existed. Maybe it did and I just didn't know it. But all I knew was I needed more money. And if you watch some of my other videos, I'm always joking around. Is that I met my wife in Russia. When we first met, she didn't even speak English. And she moved to the U.S. She learned English, became a citizen. I'm a fluent Russian speaker. She went to school to be an electrical engineer, and she's an artist. I mean, super talented, 10 times smarter than me. But she's kind of old school. And when she found out she was pregnant, she made it very clear to me that she was going to stay home and she was not going to work until the kids were older. Especially when they were babies. And her idea was that it was my job to make money while she was pregnant. I think back on some of the conversations we had and her idea of gender roles. It set some of the woke feminists back 50 years, but I don't regret it. We kept our lives small so we could live on a single income until I learned how to earn more. And the pressure, it was, in a way, it was good for me because it forced me to try a lot of different things. And, the financial pressure, it could be a good thing. I mean, one of the things that we did to make it on a single income, we never ate out. Like the first few years of our marriage, we never ate out, ever. We cooked at home every meal. I took my lunch every day. I mean, we were so tight. We were saving money. For a long time, we only had one car. And she would drive me to work and drop me off so she could have the car during the day and then pick me up, or I'd get a ride from someone. I mean, it was really tight. When I say tight, I mean it was tight. And so I'm looking for what to do. One thing leads to another. And I just get fed up. And I finally took a day off work and I went to Barnes & Noble and I just sat in there. I'm like, somewhere in this place is an answer to my problem. Like, how do I make more money? Like, what am I going to do? And I found this guy. His name is Dan Kennedy. If you don't know Dan Kennedy, you're missing out. He is an old school direct marketer, and he's the king of no BS. Okay, and he has a whole line of books called No BS Everything, like No BS Business, No BS Sales, and a whole bunch of things. So I go in there and I'm looking through these books and I get these two ideas from Dan. I bought all of his books, just by the way, and I joined his mastermind. I did a bunch of stuff with Dan. So I got two ideas from Dan, and they immediately changed my life. The first was that I needed to learn sales. I'd never been in sales in my life. I was a project manager. I was in the industry before that. I never even thought of sales. I didn't even know it was a profession. Okay, and so I learned I needed to master sales from him. And second is that I had to master my time so that I could learn what I needed to do, get some skills that were valuable, so that I could increase my income. Okay, and Dan has this whole time thing that he does where you calculate how much money you're earning and how much you want to earn. And then, so if you want to earn, like as an example, if you want to earn $100,000 a year, then that means that your time must be at least valuable at $50 an hour. Okay, so if you figure there's 2,000 working hours in a year, there's more than that with overtime and stuff. At $50 an hour, that'd be $100,000 a year, okay? So if you're doing tasks that are less than $50 an hour, you're wasting your time. And that idea, it really got me on fire, because I was doing things I shouldn't do, I wasn't focused. And so I just went nuts on this time management thing. I was getting up early and studying and learning. But in those early years, I wasn't good at sales. I didn't know it at all. And I wasn't super good with managing time and focusing it on making money. And it took me a while to learn, okay? But one thing happened. Immediately, as soon as I took that day off, I went to Barnes & Noble, I learned this idea about sales. And so the next day I went back to work, and this is going to sound insane. And I went to the owner there and my boss and said, hey, look, I want to leave project management. I don't want to be in project management anymore. I want to go into sales. Because I had heard, and I did a little research, was that they got commissions, and I convinced them to keep my base the same while I learned sales, and they said yes. I'd never been in sales, didn't know a single thing about it, but I knew it was a hard job, and salespeople could earn a lot of money. I was in the infantry, so hard. That's my middle name. I can outgrind anybody. And I knew if I went to work, I would make it work. Okay, and so they let me try. But I didn't give up on my side hustle idea. I started managing my time better. I continued to get up every day early. I was reading and studying. I was looking for what to do. And after a while, I decided that I was going to make money online and I was going to start a publishing company. Okay. I didn't have any idea what I was doing. And I went through the whole process, and I formed an LLC. I named it Knigi Publishing, which is Knigi is the Russian word for book. I just thought that was kind of clever, and my wife thought it was so stupid, and it probably was. I had it in my head, that was cool sounding name, so that's what I did. And my idea was that I could find old out-of-print books that had the copyright expired, and I would update them, maybe rewrite a little bit, and then I would bring them back into print, and then I would sell them. Okay, and that would give me something to sell. I don't even know where I got the idea, but for whatever reason, that's what I started on. And so I started scouring libraries and used bookstores for books that had the copyrights expired and they could be used. Okay. Now keep in mind, this is 2004, so quite a while ago, I guess 16, 17 years ago. And Amazon was a fraction of its size now. Google hadn't started putting all the books in print online yet. Google AdWords was just getting started. I spent countless hours looking and finding books, getting them into digital form and then formatted and and then trying to sell them online. And I didn't have any money at the time. I mean, we were just totally broke. We were just barely making rent. We're buying groceries and gas, and that was pretty much it. We had baby, my son, who's almost 17 now. I mean, he's an eating machine, so I had to keep baby Danya in diapers and food. So I learned how to set up a business entity. I created websites. I learned online marketing. It was the first time I'd ever dipped my toe in digital marketing. And I started learning about banner advertising. And this is back when AdWords was in its infancy. And so back then, when you wanted to advertise, you would pick a website and try to advertise on a website. They were just starting with where you could go and sign up on a bunch of websites at once and that kind of thing. But it's super expensive, and I didn't know what I was doing. So long story short, I didn't sell a single book. It was a nightmare. All the time I did, all the study, the books that I chose to try to reprint, no one was interested. They were terrible. I didn't have any real idea how to market to audiences, and I never thought to try and test anything. I was just charging ahead with no real plan and just like, hey, I gotta sell books, I gotta get books. Okay, so let's do the process. I just had this idea to publish books, but I didn't know. I just didn't have that middle from my idea to bridge the gap to make money, and that's what I was missing. And I should have started, if I was smarter, if I knew more. Now looking back, I should have started with the question. And this is the question that when I'm coaching, that I always ask is, who can I serve? Who can I serve that would give me money for a service that I could do for them that would solve their problems or a problem they're having, or a product. It would have saved me an enormous amount of time and money. After a few years of start and stop, Knigi Publishing did end up profitable after a few years, but it wasn't until I pivoted and I started asking myself the question, who can I serve? Okay. And what happened was, we started writing and publishing print newsletters for companies. And, so they would want to, send out like an old school print newsletter in the mail. And, this is still works then. And I've done it since, and it still works now, believe it or not. In 2021, if you send a print newsletter, it'll work for you. So what we did was, I actually did the writing myself. And then we would go through the whole publishing process to get it printed and taking it to the printers and doing the layout and the design and all of that. And, we didn't make a lot of money, but we were profitable. And even then, I think the most we ever made in that company was like $800 or $1,000 a month. And then eventually the sales part of my job, I really went hard in that job. 18 months later, I was the VP of sales, and then I realized that I had some talent in the sales arena, and so I ended up going to a startup in New York that exploded, and another story, another day. But back to the side hustle. I never gave up, and even in the failure, there was a seed of something better, because here's what happened. I eventually learned how to market, and that whole venture, that failure of Knigi Publishing, I learned how to test ideas. I learned how to manage myself. And that's what put me on, it put me on this path to eventually start my own agency, very successful agency. We've been in business now almost 7 years, and I scale companies. That's what we do, and I really know how to do it because started with the School of Hard Knocks where I had some big failures, okay? And here's the thing. You can do the same thing, but you've got to get started on your business now. And if you have a business and it's not going like you want it to, and it's you are where I was back when I first started Kanigi, is you got to start learning the right skills, okay? Skills and value really matter, okay? But don't do what I did and just flail around looking for something. Check out the Side Hustle Academy, okay? It's the sidehustleacademy.io. I got a number of resources there to help you get started toward earning more, growing in business, making it in life in general. But you got to want it more than you want the comfort of your couch, okay? You got to get out and get started. And even if you don't have a good plan, you don't have all the skills, get started, because you know what? It will lead to something. And if you don't give up and you keep working at it and working at it and working at it, trust me, in a couple of years, and it's not going to happen overnight. You got to play the long game in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, okay? You're going to be at a different level. You'll level up, and then it's going to work out for you, okay? I've started a bunch of businesses, and a lot of them now, just one right after another, are successful because I know what to do. I know how to bridge the gap from idea to testing to, okay, here's the audience, who can we serve? And then design a sales process and a marketing process to connect with them and to make money. And then to deliver a valuable service, okay? Because you got to deliver. That's all there is to it. People want results, okay? Promises don't matter. Results matter, okay? Effort doesn't matter. Results matter. So get out there, get started, check us out. And if you haven't, follow us on here. If you have a business idea, put it in the comments. I'd love to hear what you have to say. I'll read your comment. I'll respond to you. No comment will be left unresponded to. So, all right, this is Tony. Until next time, be well.